let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You will hear some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to the
Good evening,
show.
Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to one and all. Just let me get this going here for you. Yes, we are live. I want to make sure that I get my links up here. It's good to be back with you. Thank you for tuning in early. Yesterday was jam-pack. And oh my gosh, what an informative show yesterday was. I want to thank you all for joining me and for all of you who keep coming back every day, Monday to Friday, from 5 until 7. It is a pleasure to be here with you. But good evening, Cayman Islands. Another cool day here in the Cayman Islands. And I'm quite sure other parts of the Caribbean is enjoying this most welcome change. It's not something that we're accustomed to, even though this time of the year we look forward to Northwesters. But wow, history in the making. Yes, it's sure true. And I'm happy that I was here to experience this season, this winter. We no longer can say we dream about it in certain parts of Florida even, but I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. Well, it's winter, period. But yeah, it's a good time to be here to witness this. But welcome to each and every one of you tuning in from near and far. I am Sabrina, and welcome to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. It is so good to be back with you. Good evening. I see you all are coming in and taking your time. It is good. Tonight, we're talking about something that has been promised, debated, misunderstood, and for some may even feel quietly ignored for far too long. And what I'm talking about is ensued from yesterday's discussion that went into this topic of district councils. Yes, you've heard the term. You've even seen groups pop up using the name. You've heard politicians say we need them, even as late as yesterday, or that they already exist, or that they're coming soon. But here's the truth. And it's time we say it plainly. Cayman does not have district councils. Not legally, not officially, not in the way our Constitution requires. And the reason is simple. The law that was supposed to create them, the Advisory District Councils Act of 2011, was passed, but it was never brought into force. It has never been enacted. It has never taken legal effect. So any group today calling themselves a district council may be a community group, an NPO, a volunteer committee, or a political initiative, but it is not a district council under Cayman law. And that matters because Section 119 of our Constitution promised Caymanians a formal structure way to advise their elected representatives, a real mechanism for accountability, a real voice for each district. And 15 years later, that promise is still sitting on a shelf. Well, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break it down. How we got here, why the law never came to life, and what it means for the future of local democracy in these islands. The content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and or participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. 345-936-8255 is the number to call and be a part of this conversation this evening. And of course, whatever social media channels you're tuned in on, your comments are also welcome. Without further ado, let's look at what's been dominating our headlines today as it pertains to weather. The synopsis for this evening calls for winds will be gradually subside overnight as an area of high pressure moves into the Atlantic area of another frontal system. The small craft alert has been downgraded to a small craft advisory as the waves subsides. Satellite imagery shows cloudy to overcast layered clouds across the Northwest Caribbean. Now, the forecast for tonight calls for cloudy with a 30% chance of showers and periods of rain in the early morning, mainly for the sister islands. Temperatures will fall to the low 70s. Winds will be east to northeast 10 to 15 knots with higher gusts. Seas will be moderate to rough with wave heights of 4 to 6 feet, and a small craft advisory is in effect. The forecast for tomorrow calls for cloudy to overcast skies with a 40% chance of showers and periods of rain from the afternoon. Temperatures will rise to the upper 70s. Winds will be east to northeast, 10 to 15 knots with higher gusts, and seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. There will be a high tide at 10:58 tonight and a low tide at 4:51 tomorrow morning and 11:08 another high tomorrow. Sun will set this evening at 6:18. And it will sunrise tomorrow at 6:59. The outlook calls for an increase in shower activity as the cold front that has affected the Western Caribbean begins to drift back across the region, bringing deep moisture south of our area through Thursday morning. Therefore, another cold front, albeit less impactful than our previous one, will impact the Northwest Caribbean, bringing another round of rough seas and strong winds with cooler temperatures through Thursday and into Friday. So there you have it. Wow. The weather has really, I must say, has been really, really nice. I know some have pulled out those sweaters that they haven't used here in Cayman for quite some time. We all travel, over this time and into the new year, and it's cooler temperatures whenever we travel. But to say we needed to use them here, I am quite sure you dug them out, but there you have it. Let's just keep going along because, again, I am looking forward to this evening to be a very informative discussion. And I like your feedback when people actually call in and join in as it pertains to the topic that we're presenting. But before going there, let me just get you caught up on the headlines that is shaping Cayman and the world tonight. Let's keep it right here. The Royal Cayman Islands Police Service has officially redeployed its community policing units across all districts. Now, after months of public concerns over visibility and response time, officers are now back out on the beat, focusing on neighborhood patrols, youth engagement, and crime prevention. Now, in an announcement posted on the Royal Cayman Islands Police site yesterday, February the 2nd, as of the 1st of February, residents, and I got the link right here, residents in Central Georgetown, Prospect, and West Bay will once again see their familiar beat officers patrolling neighborhoods, attending community activities, and engaging directly with local businesses. And in Bodden Town, community policing officers will remain and continue as normal. Now, the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service recognizes that the community policing is a pillar of public safety, and it serves as the primary link between the police and the public, focusing on proactive problem solving and building the trust necessary to keep our island safe. I quote, "Our community police presence provides a sense of security that goes beyond traditional patrolling," says the Commissioner of Police. While the temporary withdrawal was a difficult operational necessity, our recruitment efforts have now reached a stage that allows us to return these officers to the heart of our communities, end quote. Now, to get in touch with your community police officers and learn more about community policing in your area, contact your district police station. So I know lots of you will be happy for this. And there you have it on the screen. We can actually, screen is frozen. Not so sure what's going on there. Sorry about that. The internet has sucked all over. Damian Henry, thank you for telling me that. But as we continue with the headlines, the government has also issued a new request for proposals to design an automated traffic enforcement system with conditions worsening across Grand Cayman. Officials say it's time to modernize how we manage road safety and flow. Yes, there we have. Also making headlines locally, the SAN is back. You heard from the weather. Yes. After months of erosions and concern, SAN is returning to 7 Mile Beach. Thanks to the recent northwester, beachgoers and residents have noticed a visible transformation along parts of the coastline, especially in the southern stretches of 7 Mile Beach. Areas that had been stripped down to rock and pretty much seawall are now showing fresh layers of sand, with some beach access points reappearing for the first time in months. Now, the buzz is definitely in the air. I have seen pictures from yesterday into today with photos and videos flooding social media, showing wider beaches and smoother shorelines, and even families enjoying the newly restored spaces. This is a welcoming sight. But while the return of the SAN is cause for celebration, experts are urging caution, because coastal scientists reminds us that northwesters can both erode and replenish the beach. And while this event has brought back sand, it may not be permanent. The long-term health of 7 Mile Beach continues to face serious threats from sea level rise, strong storms, and human development. Now, so the question is now, do we let nature take its course, or do we intervene to protect what's left? We'll be definitely following this story closely, because it isn't just about sand. Really and truly, it's about our shoreline, our economy, and our identity. So there you have it. I know you two have been seeing some of the pictures and the wave action. We're going to get some more again later on this week. So let's hope it doesn't take back out what it's brought in, but it'll continue to bring it in. And more on the Cayman Islands local news scene for today. Big news, big news for Cayman's aviation future if you haven't heard it before. The government's ambitious plans to redevelop Owen Roberts International Airport, with a projected cost of over US $660 million, has officially received early stage funding in the 2025-2026 national budget. Now, Honorable Minister J. Ebanks, who oversees planning and infrastructure, confirmed that the redevelopment is a top infrastructure priority. And he outlined a vision during his Finance Committee presentation and again at the Chamber of Commerce Economic Forum. Now, the plan includes extending the runway by 1,900 feet into the North Sound, upgrading air traffic control systems, building a new general aviation terminal for private aircrafts, and the long-term adding passenger jet bridges, which were previously excluded due to costs. Now, Minister Ebanks called the project a once-in-a-generation investment and emphasized that the initial budget covers design, environmental assessments, and planning work, with construction funding expected in future cycles. Now, public consultations and environmental reviews are already underway as part of the CIA's 2041 Airports Master Plan, and we'll definitely keep you updated on this major project as it takes flight. Now, there you have it. That is our local news updates. I'm not going to go around the world. Nope, not going to do it. But there's still a lot going on from the US, even in Guyana. Yes, Guyana. All new weather basketball court has opened. I thought this was a good thing in Bridgetown, part of a broader push to expand youth development programs nationwide. So that's it. We'll take a wrap right there with you for our latest headlines, mostly local today. Yesterday we missed it. My apologies there, but it was so exciting to get into the conversation. And yes, let's see who's here with us today. Marshall, good evening. You're the first one to comment. It's good to have you here with me. Connie Bonnie, how are you, my love? Don, good evening to you. I am loving it, Donnie. Your coffee does not last long. Your Milo, your tea, if you go outside to enjoy it because it's that cold. But let me tell you something. It is different and it's welcoming. Damian Henry, yes. It's all good to have you here. Yes. I hope to. I don't even know because for me, it shows I'm fine. So whatever were the internet issues that you're seeing, I'm not aware of it because everything is fine on my side. So my apologies. It is beyond my control. Miss Barbara, it's so good to have you here. It's good to have you here. Nigel, yep, is congratulating on some of the headlines that we said. And it's good to have all of you here, Annie and Miss Dorothy. Let's send love out, Connie, to Jimbo, who declared, he would be out and recovering from a procedure that was done yesterday. I checked in with him and he is doing well. He's well on the mend. So sending get well wishes, speedy recovery for Jimbo. And I know he will be tuning in as all that anesthetic gets out of his system. But we're sending our love to you, Jimbo. Miss ya, a speedy recovery. And I still waiting for you to make a full recovery. So me, you, and Connie can hit the road running. Yes. There you go. Welcome, one and all. Now, here's something to really make you wonder. Think about this. It really got me scratching my head, and I had to actually say it. Let me go. Anonymous tips have helped police execute search warrants, right? And suspects have been identified. Investigations have moved forward. All thanks to the people who spoke up quietly, anonymously, through Cayman Crime Stoppers. But here's the twist. The rewards for those tips still sitting there, unclaimed. You heard me right. Now, according to a report from the Cayman News Service, several tipsters are owed cash, but no one's come forward to collect. Now, Crime Stoppers is urging those anonymous heroes to step up and claim what's theirs. Because yes, you can still say anonymous and still get paid. So it makes sense, you wonder, right? Now, are people afraid to come forward even for a reward? Do they know that they're even eligible? Or is it fair for being found out still stronger than the promise of justice and a little cash? Whatever the reason, one thing is clear, the system worked. But the silence after success, that's the part that lingers. Now, this has been your what the heck section. But I just couldn't hold that. Thanks to CNS for doing that report. And I had to share it with you. But what are your thoughts on that one? Would you do it? Or what would be the fair? You think, based on the article, you're still going to be kept anonymous, but the cash is there. Go get it. Go get it. And congratulations to all of you who provided this information that have led to some arrests, solving of crimes. Go get your money. If you don't need it, get it and I'll use it for you. For those of you just joining us, good evening and welcome to Sabrina Speaks. Now we're back We're back, and I want to break down the system that shapes our lives, yes, and asks the questions that others won't. And that, my friends, is diving into the topic that has been sitting in the shadows for a little bit too long. We have, despite us hearing talks, it's a law that was passed, written, titled, printed, and then left, almost appeared to gather dust. And I am talking about the District Advisory Councils Act of 2011. Now, this law was supposed to give every district in Cayman a formal voice on how it is governed. But that law has never been brought into force. It has never been enacted, which means, and I want you to hear this clearly, Cayman has no legal district councils. None. So I invite you to join in on the conversation if you want to share what your thoughts are, or if it is an aha moment for you. I want to hear from you. 345-936-8255 is the number to call to be a part of this discussion. You can also send me a WhatsApp, or you can comment if you're tuning in via YouTube or Facebook to join in on this conversation. Now, let's get straight to it, okay? This piece of legislation, the piece of legislation that I'm talking about, has really been very topical. It has been very topical all the time. But I don't think people are really grasping what transpired, okay? It's a law that was passed, as I said, has a title, it was written, and almost appeared to have gathered dust. But here's the kicker. It was never brought into force, and it was never really activated. When you look at what the actual piece of legislation says, and I will quote before taking this call, the District Advisory Council Act was passed in 2011 to fulfill Section 119 of our Constitution. And I've put what that Section 119 is on the screen. Now, that section states that Parliament must make a law to establish district councils, local advisory bodies to help guide elected members of Parliament on issues affecting their communities. So, what did that act actually propose? Section 1 of this law, pretty much, break it down, gives the law its name. Section 2 defines the terms and what the councils and who it counts and the elected members and so on, right? And then Section 3 of this says each district may have a council. The key word is may. Each district may have a council, but only if the MP from that district decides to appoint one. So it's optional, not automatic. Section 4 of this piece of legislation also says that councils can have up to 10 members. And here's the twist. They're all appointed by the member of Parliament. And if the member of Parliament is part of a political party, most of the council must come from that party's district committee. Section 5 of the law says members serve at the pleasure of the member of Parliament, meaning they can be removed at any time. Section 6 of this law outlines that the council's role is that they're advisory only. They don't make decisions. They just give opinions, advice, recommendations to the member of Parliament. 7 says councils must meet at least once every 3 months. And Section 8 means that it lets them set their own meeting rules. Section 9 says members don't get paid, but they can be reimbursed for expenses. And 10 says they require confidentiality. 11 protects members from lawsuits if they act in good faith. And 12 gives cabinet the power to make more rules if needed. Now, this may sound like a structure, right? But there's a problem. Before we go into that, Good evening, caller, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind? Not surprised.
Good evening, Sabrina, and good evening to your esteemed listeners. First of all, let me say I've never met Jimbo before, but I understand that he underwent a procedure, and you've been in touch with him, and you understand that he's doing well.
Yes.
Although I haven't met him, I feel him in that I listen to him. It's always nice to have somebody who is eloquent and who cares for the community the way I think I do as well. So just wishes for a good recovery to him.
Yes, thank you for sharing that.
Yes, and then well, yesterday I agree with you. Great discussion. It was so good that the Honorable Kenneth Bryan was able to join in, and I mean, it's just been so interesting to see him like develop in his from the journalist he was, active, smart journalist, to getting into the big political fray, and just how he seems to respond to his experiences and to try to learn from them, to try and like sort of moderate his views and so on. I mean, that's good to see. And I'm not just saying that. That's always good to see in anybody, whether they are, he's a mature politician now, but it's just good to see in anybody, because some people can be in politics for so a long time, but they don't show that ability to respond to the environment and show that great effort to try and move things forward. Now, district councils, woo. Well, somebody called me some time back, not recently, actually, a long time ago. They asked me, they said, but what is this thing they say that the law hasn't been implemented or it hasn't been enacted? But I mean, if the parliament has enacted it, what is the difference? Can you explain that? So, I mean, I explained it to him, but that was not on air. It was in a private call. But I thought maybe we can begin there because it gives us, thank you. It gives us an opportunity to to sort of exchange ideas. So, you see, you were reading Section 1, and Section 1(2) says that the law shall come into force on such date as may be appointed by the governor and cabinet. Now, where the law is now, it has, in terms of the technical legality of it was enacted. Now, when is a law enacted? It is enacted when the governor signs it. Now, why is it not enacted when the Legislative Assembly passes it? The reason it's not enacted at that point is because the Legislative Assembly is only one part of the legislature. The other part of the legislature is the governor. I think in a call some time back with you and Denny,
Mr. Balika, 1 second. I'm going to add another caller who wants to join you, but it's not the member from Georgetown. So 1 second.
That's great.
That is great. And I like that. Let me find. Oh, where is she? There we go. There we go. Let's add. Go ahead, Mr. Balika. I'm just hoping that she. Yeah, go ahead. You can continue once. Yes. Good evening, caller. You're live. You're joined with Mr. Balika.
Wonderful. Good evening. Of course, because I called, I didn't hear the last couple minutes of what you've been saying, but I intentionally wanted to call while Mr. Balika was on the line because listening to everything that you've said in what the Act says, and also the rhetoric over the past 3 years, the general consensus has been, what is the purpose of a district council if the members are appointed by the MPs? And because I think a lot of people argue about, we don't have no district councils yet. Where's the district councils? What happened to the district councils? Because they're looking for a group of individuals from that politician's constituency to hold them somewhat accountable. But if they're appointed by them, they're their own team players. So what is the purpose of the district council is my question. And I will hang up and listen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. And it's
Well,
excellent question
I
too.
hope she. Well, very, very excellent question.
Yeah.
You know, like, you appoint advisors. Advisors, I'm appointing you here. I want you to tell me whatever I want to hear. You know, but you are my advisors. That's what the question is. Well, I wish you had stayed on, but you know, I hope that we can reconnect again. Well, you see, the way I understood the district councils, they were intended to be, well, as it says, advisory to the minister. To be some kind of link between the minister and the people in their constituency. So, and because they are advisory, their advice was never meant to be binding. But you see, it's very, very interesting because you find that in a lot of cases, when you have somebody who is advising you, usually that advisor is appointed by you. Look at the US, for example. You've got people, you've got the secretaries of state who are, in a sense, advisory to the president because he is the one who wields executive power. They merely assist him to exercise that power, but he appoints them and they advise him. He'll appoint, and then the administrative staff, he appoints them, but they advise him. In other governments, they have what are called special assistants. Like you would have a special assistant for like the prime minister or the president who have special assistant for press, special assistant on legal affairs, special assistant for the economy, and so on. So even if they do have ministries, but they have those people who are close to them who can give them advice straight away on certain things. So, I mean, the answer to the question, in a sense, is difficult. One, you would just expect to say, well, to accept that normally a government functionary appoints their own advisors. But what you would wish is that they would appoint advisors who are known for their objectivity, and that when they come in, they should also be reassured that, hey, you are my advisor. I don't want you to tell me what I want to hear. I want you to tell me what your opinion is. I want you to tell me what's going on out there so that I can better perform my functions. I guess that's the only way one can explain that, because again, an advisor is supposed to have a good personal relationship with you, and that's why usually you do not get another authority to appoint an advisor for you, because at a certain level it also has to do not just with the technical ability of the person, but also like the personal rapport that you might have. I don't know if that's an adequate answer, but that's the way I understood the councils.
I think what they were supposed to be is actually, where democracy is concerned, it was actually bridging between the people and the representative, but in a structural way. And this is exactly the concern. The concern of the caller was exactly why it created some form of friction. How can you say we're going to make it where it's non-political, that people will have a voice, that they will legitimately hold their MP accountable, was where the balancing act became a problem. Because from the mere fact that you are actually tasked as this group for giving, when we under the umbrella of giving the community a formal voice, how do you do that when then that's selected, as stated in the legislation, by that, handpicked by that MP? It isn't a voluntary service. So it's almost, I'm not going to want to rock the boat. I don't want to upset the MP because I want to remain a part. And that is where it becomes a bit blur. You know, they're really supposed to be respected as a group, to have some sort of formal table or space at a table from the local. We always hear this term here, politics is local, but this is what would actually legitimize that statement, and bringing members of civil society who may not want or have any political aspirations whatsoever, but want to be a part of their community. And if they're well organized and supported both ways, trust me, those groups can make any MP's life much easier. because they feel
much
as
easier,
though,
yes.
yes, they have a stake, they are respected, and it's a buy-in. So to be honest with you, when you look at even how the law is outlined, it is structured how they were supposed to meet. The question came in as how they are selected. So I can understand the concerns from the caller. What is the purpose? If how the law was designed is that they're handpicked, but you can see it from both sides as well. Why it would be important for them to have some say. But then if it's all politically aligned, because I think there was one part in the actual law. No, that's the remuneration side of things. It says where an electoral district, this is how it preempt the constituencies. And I don't mind to go through, to skip, but look at this. Section 5. If single member constituencies were to be introduced or new electoral districts added, subsection 4 shall apply to them in the same way as it applies to constituencies existing at the commencement of this law. And going back to number 4, it says where an electoral district does not have a member who belongs to the party whose leader has been appointed premier under section 49(2) of the Constitution, the party or member shall be entitled to nominate up to 3 members to the relevant council. So you can see I can see the caller's concern.
Yes, you see, and it highlights something that you have also alluded to in your discussion, in that you see there is almost like, if not legally, but at least at a factual operational level, that these district councils might have a dual role, which is not just to advise, but they might also be a check and balance on the MP. Because I don't imagine that when you choose them and they come from the constituency, they see, you see, they are more than just advisors, because they are also part of your constituents. So it is possible that they may also hold you to account. They might say,
hold up,
Minister,
what are you doing?
MP, what are you doing here now? We're advising you, okay, don't do ABC and so on. The people in the constituency, it might not go very well with them. We've talked to the people on the ground. But then they might say, well, look, we think that what you said regarding such and such a matter, we, as well as the constituents, think that you didn't do the right thing. Why did you do that? The people want to know. Okay? And that is something that does not appear in the law there. But purely by you juxtaposing the minister and the advisors, who are in effect, in a sense, representatives of the constituents, there is a way in which they will hold you accountable. And I would say that if they were to look at the law again, that's an aspect perhaps a lot of people, maybe some people, maybe not a lot, I don't know, might want to see like enacted in there. That part of their job is also to hold the minister accountable. And that leads to the question, could this be something that some MPs have foreseen and maybe don't want? Maybe they see more that these district council members might perform more of a role of holding them accountable rather than advising them on how to to navigate their roles. And I don't know whether what that is true or not, but I do see it as a practical problem.
but you look at exactly. I got about 5 reasons, and I kind of broke it down when I looked and dissected the law. Right, the caller was specific. What are they supposed to do? Well, the purpose, based on how this was envisaged, even though verbatimly it came out a little bit different, right? They were supposed to, 1, give the community a formal voice. Number 2, as you've alluded to, keep MPs accountable and grounded, right? Number 3, they're also there, or this grouping was to improve the quality of decisions as well. What do I mean by that? Even though they're advisory, when you bring together a diverse amount of people, let's say in our single member constituencies from different parts, different walks of life, different way of thinking, businesses and, retirees, that sort of stuff, young persons as well. You get, in my humble opinion, a better sense, for a better word, a richer picture of really what's really going on in your constituency. And any MP, I would think that input really helps to actually help them make better decisions. And it's not just about complaints, but also you'd be surprised the information that you can get when it comes to even possible solutions to really think on. And another area to answer that caller's question is that these groupings were envisioned to actually assist in the building of trust and transparency. And also, the big takeaway is to encourage civic participation that we have championed here over and over again. Because at the end of the day, not everybody wants to run for political office. We've heard the MP from Georgetown Central says at first he was like, I'm not interested in that, not based on how I'm seeing this, because how do I know one of them may actually want to run against me? And then he oh gosh, I heard what I'm saying. I'm not here forever. Where's succession planning? Why would you not want to groom, choice of words, be able to create an environment where, someone can aspire whether or not they would one day want to be an MP, but also people just genuinely want to help. So I hope that answers the caller's perspective of what these groups were supposed to be doing. And here we are 15 years later and still talking about it.
We're still talking about it. Yeah, I mean, while you were talking, Sabrina, I got reminded of the political satire, Yes, Prime Minister, which came out sometime in the 70s or thereabouts. And I know just about every episode almost by heart, if I can exaggerate a little bit. There was one episode where the fictional professor there was called Professor Marriott. And what Professor Marriott suggested to the Prime Minister then was, look, Prime Minister, do you know that a lot of people who elect MPs don't really know them? Because they only elect them on the basis of the image that they portray on
during the campaign.
Says,
charisma, charismatic.
Exactly. They don't really know them. So why don't we reform the system so that you can have an election where you can have a town hall in where people actually meet the minister and they get to know them intimately. They meet them regularly, so that when they vote for them, they have also shared a cup of tea and so on with them. Because you can't continue in this system. You know what the Prime Minister said? The Prime Minister got up and said, Professor Marriott, goodbye.
Oh, wow.
Because the Prime Minister didn't want the system to become so such that the minister got to be very well known at an intimate level by the people in the constituency, because they felt that was going to be very difficult for them to hold on to their seats. So the Prime Minister preferred a system where you know very little about your minister. The level of contact is regulated by the minister, and that way, they put it awkwardly, I suppose, your electorate don't become too wise that they see your weaknesses, And this advisory district councils, all these issues arise, and they really should be talked about. I think what is becoming clear to me is that people are interested in this idea, but also they have a lot of questions, and they've got suggestions also as to how that could be improved. Now, one thing that we haven't discussed, I think, between yesterday and today, is why this became a problem in the first place. In other words, how can a law, which goes to the Legislative Assembly, Parliament now, and the governor has assented to it, and it is published in the Gazette, it says that it will come into force when Cabinet issues an order. Why hasn't Cabinet issued an order? Okay, we've discussed a little bit of that. But then, if you are a member of the public and you are saying, well, what can we do to force the government to bring it into force? What do you do? Okay, and that issue actually has been addressed in other countries. because there has been litigation in Canada and Australia, which I'm aware of, over the last few decades, where a government fails to bring a law into force, an act into force, and people get frustrated and they went to court. They asked the court, can you compel the government to bring this law into force? And courts both in Canada and Australia have said, we can't be involved in that. That's a political decision. The court cannot tell a government that bring this act into force by a certain day or on a certain condition, because that's a purely political decision. And that's in a sense, well, not in a sense, that also is part of the problem in Cayman, because nobody has talked to me about where we want to go to court about this. But part of the issue is that you can't do anything about it. But other countries, have taken some measures to ensure that this kind of thing does not happen. In Australia and New Zealand, generally speaking, whenever a law is enacted, they insist that there should be a date when it comes into force. In other words, instead of saying shall come into force when cabinet says so, in their case, usually it's when the governor general issues a proclamation. They say, no. In every act which comes to Parliament, we want a date of implementation, a date of it coming into force. A
commencement order.
Exactly. You see, in Cayman, there's only one that I remember which was enacted that way. That was the Public Service Management Act. That was given a specific date, and it came into effect on a particular date. I think they had to amend the date one time to just sort of like move it. This was before Ivan. I believe that some members of parliament didn't want it to come into effect before the election because it might affect them. So they decided to move the date after that. But anyway, so that's the way other countries have dealt with it. They've insisted that every act should have a commencement date. If government wants to have the power to bring it into force, rather than it having a commencement date, the practice in those countries I've mentioned generally is that they want special reasons to be given as to why you should be given the power to bring it into force. Okay, in Cayman, as a matter of course, generally speaking, it is taken for granted. If an act a bill goes to Parliament, there will be a section 1(2) which says that government should bring it into force. That's the default position. So that's what some countries have done. Some other countries, like in again, I forget this particular jurisdiction. What they say is that if you enact a law and it is waiting to be brought into force, then you have to bring it in force within 1 year. If you do not bring it into force within 1 year, it will automatically enter into force on the anniversary of its passing. Okay, so you enact it on the when you enact it like it is assented to on the 1st of June, 2026. And then you don't bring it into force, then it will automatically enter into force on the 1st of June, 2027. Now, if the government is not ready, then they would have to go to Parliament before the year expires to ask for an extension. And do you see that gives it a little bit more of a check? And if we had in Cayman that kind of system, this probably wouldn't have happened. Now, some other countries, they take like a middle approach. Rather than name a date or have this default position, they say, look, every single year, and this is what they do in Ontario. In Ontario, every year, the Attorney General has to give a statement to Parliament to outline what laws have come into force, which ones have not come into force, and explain to Parliament why they haven't come into force, so that Parliament can perform that check and balance. And if they feel they are unhappy, then they can enact a piece of legislation to amend it so that it can automatically come into force. So these are the three ways in which, if we had one of these methods used in the Cayman Islands,
right,
we wouldn't have had this issue of of this law, not coming into force for so long. I remember when I was doing my little book on the Cayman Islands legislative process, I had asked the venerable lady, Miss Mary Lawrence, who was speaker at the time, and Zina Merenchin, who was clerk at the time. She's now chief officer of the parliamentary board. And yes, I asked them to just comment on the book. Every time you write a book of that professional type, you ask certain people who would have intimate knowledge to have a look. So I asked them to have a look, and I remember at that time, Miss Mary Lawrence. Whenever I quote somebody, I think it's a safe thing to quote somebody, and usually it's a good thing about them. What she said was, "Well, why hasn't the children's law?" This is like you are talking about 12 years ago or so. Why hasn't the children's law come into force? Because it had just been enacted, big piece of legislation. It was going to better protect kids, and she was concerned, that it was not coming into force. And she raised the issue, and I had the opportunity to explain to her just what I've been explaining here, which is, well, yes, that's a political decision. You can put pressure on them. Even courts like do not interfere in such matters. She was not talking about going to court, but I just took that as an opportunity so that we could discuss it. So I think people need to look at this and say, in order to avoid this kind of thing happening in the future. Yeah, does Cayman want to look at one of these three systems and see if it can enact a new system which will prevent this from happening? But this is, Sabrina, for me as a draft.
Sir, when you look, hold that thought for a little bit. When you look at the amount of campaigning that was done, even yesterday, the conversation ensued from yesterday's episode about the importance of having public feedback, people weighing in on these sort of things. We even took it as far as Constitution requiring amendment in the United Kingdom for how even our premier is selected, correct? How much people really, I'm hearing how you say this could have been implemented, enacted, but this has been there. We can't say we don't have piece of groundwork from 2011, sir. So much so that it even preempted today, where we have 19 single member constituencies. So you cannot use the excuse that because districts are not clearly defined. In the terms of reference, and in that section that I read, subsection 4, it actually had future proof in there. Now, however, it's only where it came to districts that it was future proof. You understand where I'm coming from with that? But you can't say that we did not, or it's not enacted for the purpose of this conversation, because now that we have 19 constituencies, oh no, that is no. That law was future proof from 2011.
Yeah.
So it goes to show you how long the conversations was being had about single member constituencies.
And if you see, Sabrina, if you've got certain issues like that of interpretation, those are issues that could be dealt with, because there was really nothing that would prevent this from being implemented.
Other than funding.
They would have...
Because I have that. I have that, because that was that even came up as a thing yesterday. And there's deliberately, I'm doing it here. And if you'd allow me, section 6 of the Act says, funding and remuneration of members. The funds available, 1, for a purpose of enabling the councils to perform their functions under this law shall consist of such sums such as, A, may be provided for those purposes in the estimates of revenue and expenditure of the islands for the purpose and approved by the Legislative Assembly in such years as the Legislative Assembly may, on the recommendation of the minister responsible for finance, choose to do so. B, the councils may receive as donations, and C, the councils may raise through community and other activities. Subsection 2 of this 6 says councils shall have a power to charge to the general, have no power to charge to the general revenues of the islands any of their expenditure. Subsection 3, members who are not public officers as defined in the Constitution shall be paid such allowances as the governor in cabinet may determine. Subsection 4, the payment of such allowances shall be paid out of the revenue of the islands. And subsection 5, councils shall keep proper records of their accounts and comply with such regulations as the governor in cabinet may make in relation hereto. So, sir, you can't say that we didn't have the foundation.
No, you can't say that because it's all in your hands.
Correct.
Okay, and when you look at it, this goes a little bit beyond what some other bodies even have, because a lot of statutory bodies, all they say is, "Oh, the fund shall be those which are appropriated by Parliament." It might have one or two other categories, but you see, this one talks also about donations. It also talks about raising money through the community.
Yes.
Okay. Now, other government institutions don't normally raise money through the community because they usually, like, you're trying to prevent them from being corrupt and so on. But you see, the point is that this gives even greater scope to raise money. If, for example, Parliament were to say, well, okay, we can't give so much, we can only give a certain amount, then they could help to solicit donations because they are allowed under the law to do that. They could put together, I don't know, some raffles or some whatever fundraising activities they want to put in place. So at the end of the day, see, to me, the question that arises here in relation to this, in other words, you've made the point that there is no legal or factual impediment, or no legal impediment or financial impediment to these councils being made operational. So why is it that up to this point, all these years, nobody has been pushing to say, well, come on, let's have this implemented? Can we say that both the government and the opposition, current and previous, not to put you on the spot, that we're not interested in this? Is there an agreement?
Political
quote, unquote,
apathy, maybe, or it's not a priority.
Yeah.
But I mean, have I not been right here, right now, for full disclosure? And the conversation ensued yesterday, looking at this piece of legislation line by line. Personally, in the past, 4 years during my term? No, because you had to look in the environment that you're in. The environment that you're in, you look at what's priority at that time, not to say that it wasn't important. There are some very well-oiled machines, community groups that have taken the step and gone and registered themselves, declared themselves as a non-profit organization.
NPO,
exactly. Yes. So when you look at what I just read, whether or not these district councils are actually put into effect, let's say this law is enacted, there are some groupings that already have the foundation. That the amalgamation or having representation on these councils out of respect, because they have the experience, the amount of years of operation, they have shown the power of what they're capable of doing. I think it's political apathy, number one. And number two, people really not truly in a grassroots term, realizing the power that the law, it's already there. It's already there.
And you see, and you have to give the compliments to the Honorable Minister of Health for, in the last Parliament, she began her own district council in West Bay. Now, of course, that was not a district council
as defined by law.
And I think as defined by law, which is an issue you touched upon from the beginning. But to me, it just showed that, well, she said, look, a little phrase that I like, the law was made for man and not man for the law. The law is supposed to facilitate what you do, not to complicate your life. So she felt, well, look, just because the law hasn't been brought into force, I am not going to sit here and do nothing because I still want to consult by whatever means I can, by whatever structure I can use, whether or not it's legally enacted or not, so long as the body itself is not unlawful. And so she was able to do that and even concede that, well, this is not being done under the law because the law is not in effect. But I want to carry out the spirit of that law so that I can consult. I also think that Mr. Edward Miller, when he was MP for Northside, I think he did also put together an informal committee to assist him, in his function. So for those people really who intend to do something, to me, I think they probably should follow the example of Mr. Edward Miller and the Honorable Kathy Wilkes to do something of this nature. Because now I start to think, this political apathy, is it common to all politicians or not? Because first of all, I would be. You just jogged my memory on something there when you talked about the priorities in government. Having worked in government for much of my my political career, my legal career, I can understand, and you do too, Sabrina, as well, how sometimes things that are simple to do cannot be done either because there is no political will to do it, but sometimes there's political will, but you just can't fit it in.
The pace
there are
and
so
pace,
many,
and you got to cross-check,
pace.
recheck, and confirm, and then you're waiting on it, and you almost have to be your own PA sometimes, because many a night's flashbacks, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I would say, oh my God, I need an update. The next policy meeting that I have with the team, I need to ask about this. I need to ask about that. I need to ask about that. I can't say it in the public's domain, but mentally I'm trying to remember, but hold on. Where's the update on that? Where's the update on that? And when you get to these meetings and you ask for your update, if it's not organically coming based on the discussion, there's always a delay that then furthers. So it is not that there isn't a will or a way. Many a times you get the legal drafters that says, oh, we got to come back with that. And then you need to find out who will then take the lead on certain things. Let's say this becomes then a priority. Who would this fall under? You understand? Would be then the pace. The pace is the problem. It's the pace.
We are now in this area now, which I think a lot of people really haven't experienced. I'm quite sure some people do understand about priorities and how a machine, no matter how well oiled, sometimes can be slow. But one thing that sometimes one might not appreciate is that even if one bill, for example, the tourism bill, comes to the House, when you look at the steps that it has to go through, a bill usually in Cayman goes through approximately 33 steps to be passed. Now, some of those steps are just in legislative drafting. They are not major steps. A lot of them, they don't take so long. Like they are sent technically. It doesn't take long in the governor's office. But once a bill is passed by the Legislative Assembly, the clerk prepares a bill as enacted. In other words, with all those committee stage amendments, and then they point those out. Then they send it to legislative drafting. Legislative drafting, since that's the only place where it can be amended, then we used to you amend it. Once you amend it, then you take it back to the clerk's office, and they go through it and make double sure that it is right. And then both the speaker and the clerk sign it, and then it comes back now to legislative drafting. Legislative drafting now says, okay, fine, we now have to prepare what is called a legal report. The legal report is merely something which takes that memorandum of objects and reasons and changes it now. Instead of saying bill, it says act. Instead, and then it also talks about when the bill was debated, when it was passed, and there are certain changes you do to that. Once that is done, then you take the bill as signed by the speaker and the clerk, and the legal report is prepared by you, the legislative council. then you send it to the Attorney General, because it has to be signed now by the Attorney General. When the Attorney General goes through, if it is fine, then he passes it on to the governor. When it goes to the governor has to double check with FCO, and we were required with every bill that has been passed to send it to FCO so that they can double check it. Then the governor assents to it and then sends it back to the Attorney General. Then the Attorney General sends it back to legislative drafting. Then legislative drafting sends it to GIS to be gazetted. And what I have indicated there is just what happens once it passes in the Legislative Assembly. There are also certain steps which take place before that. And that's what I also want to emphasize. You have a tourism bill, but you have to consult Ministry of Finance, because they will have to tell you, would we have money to implement this? Okay?
Because there are cost implications, resources.
There are cost implications. Exactly.
And the pace of your policy team.
Exactly. The Attorney General, generally speaking, would have to be consulted even before it goes to Cabinet, because just in case there are some constitutional or human rights implications, they have to be able to clear it. In fact, in some countries, what they do is that instead of sending a cabinet paper straight away, you would prepare the cabinet paper, a draft cabinet paper, and then you would have the relevant ministries listed at the end of the paper. The Attorney General is always there, the Minister of Finance is always there, then also the clerk of cabinet is also there, because the cabinet office needs to know that you are circulating this for consultation. Then when they all comment, then you append their comments to the cabinet paper and send it to cabinet. Now, sometimes if there are too many disagreements, you actually rewrite the cabinet paper, because you don't want it to get to cabinet with too many disagreements. Sometimes
because it'll go nowhere. It'll go nowhere.
It'll go. Exactly. So you rewrite it, then you recirculate it, and if this time the disagreements are minimal, then you take that and you take it to cabinet. So there is a lot that takes place. Things that look simple, they take a long time.
But
however,
caller, there's a reason why I stopped you, because we have some comments coming in, and I want to read some, because some have questions as well. So stick it right there, but let's keep this one relevant to where you were at. Denver says, how many times, and based on your experience, how many times in the past our government had passed laws one sitting? Bang, overnight. So why such simple things need to be made law can take so long? Weigh in on that one, and then I'll go to some comments and questions made by Alfred Reel. Can you respond to Denver?
Well, if I understand Denver, you were saying, well, if they can do certain things very quickly and do them in one day, why can they do the same with other things? Is that like the essence of the question?
Pretty much. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I guess based on the topic that we're having, this seems like a low-hanging fruit, even though it was from 2011. We see where certain elements of this piece of legislation has actually preempted future of single-member constituencies. Here we are, 15 years, and it clearly outlines what it doesn't have is the regulation. So there's a financial implication to it. But that is all stuff that can be discussed. So yes to your question.
Yes, because sometimes it is because somebody doesn't want the piece of legislation. Look, when you go to Parliament, one day, if they want it to be passed, it will be passed. There are sometimes the OECD has come in and they say they want this legislation to be done in 3 weeks. It is passed. A lot of times when it is delayed, it is not always because of the bureaucracy. Sometimes it is because the parties who are consulting on it can't agree. Sometimes there's a drafter. I've held legislation in the countries I've worked in. Sometimes I've held legislation for 2 years. It's already drafted, and I've circulated it for comment. But like one legislation, I won't mention which one, this was in the BVI, STEP couldn't agree on 2 sections with the government. So I held on to it for 2 years. So sometimes that's the problem. What we can say about the district council one is that despite all these explanations that we're trying to say, well, look, sometimes it's not the fault of the government, it's just a system and they need to consult. But those cannot be an explanation for the delay of the councils, because this has been 15 years. Surely any problems that you would have had, you could have sorted them out. For example, the Standards in Public Life Act, which I wrote together with the lady, now may her soul rest in peace, Deborah Borden, together with Karen Thompson, the famous now retired lawyer. That law, we worked on it, and I was the drafter responsible for it, wrote it, and then it was taken to Parliament. But when it came back now, there were certain problems after it was assented to, which were like, people felt uneasy. Like, people wanted to serve on the board, but they said, the disclosure provisions and the conflict provisions, they are so strict. It means I have to disclose what my wife has, what my child has, and this and that. There was one time it was so broad, and the Parliament had to go and amend it even before it came into force, okay? So that we could clear those. So you do get certain special kinds of problems like that. So a lot of reasons why laws don't come into force in time. Some of them is a system. Some of them is a political will. That has to be the answer to that.
Okay. Well, there's a comment.
You're going to read another comment?
Yes, the comments and two questions from Alfred. Auntie Sabrina, what's most striking here isn't that district councils failed. It's that participation itself was promised, legislated, and then quietly withheld. When a law exists, but it's never activated, it creates the appearance of empowerment without the reality of it. Alfred Reel continues by saying, communities are left improvising voice while accountability floats upward with no place to land. If local democracy only exists on paper, then what we're really debating is whether Caymanians are meant to be partners in governance or merely audiences to it. He also says, if the law created space for community voice, but the state never opened the door, where does accountability actually sit? With citizens for not participating, or with institutions for not enabling participation? That's profound. And finally, when informal gaps step in to fill that vacuum, should they be dismissed as illegitimate or treated as evidence that local democracy is being demanded, even if it's not being formally allowed? Well, we're getting participation here.
Profound. That is profound indeed, because it says it is not just about the district council. The issue is a broader one, and I think that's what the
bottom line
person messaging there is saying.
Correct.
It's a broader issue. You create a law. When you create a law, the people in the community, you have created an expectation that they are going to be consulted, and consulted meaningfully through this structure that you have proposed and you have enacted. And then, having enacted it, then you do not operationalize it. Then it looks like you are not taking your people seriously. You do not want to be held accountable. You do not want to receive their counsel. And if you are going to wait for 15 years, what is it that you couldn't amend so that this can become operational? Because in the end, they start saying, maybe you never wanted this to begin with.
Correct.
And if you never wanted this to begin with, what is your attitude to us as your constituents? What is your attitude to democracy? What is your attitude to accountability and good governance? And this is, I hope that the government, this one, future ones, can look at something like what has happened to the district council law, that it raises much broader questions. And I think the thing is they should try as much as possible to see if they can enact this. Now, on a smaller point, Sabrina, as somebody who wrote legislation for a long time in my career, I should also mention that when legislation is drafted, it takes a lot of time. I've described a little bit of what happens.
Mhm.
Sometimes, by the way, without repeating everything, when it comes to me as a drafter, depending on the legal and legislative issues,
Mhm.
sometimes I have to do so much research, case law, other jurisdictions, other countries, what they do. And once I finish it and it's not enacted, even I'm frustrated at a personal level. But more importantly, you have wasted government money
Mhm.
because you are paying me to do it. You are paying the advisors, the ministers who consider it, everybody. If you were, for example, to say how much money went into the district council bill, in other words, look at the MPs. Did they debate it let's say they debated it for 5 hours?
Mhm.
How much was each one of them getting per hour? Like if you take
And break it down. Mhm.
their work schedule and so on, you break it up. Like in government, for example, when they are claiming costs in government, like costs in court, they take the salary of the Crown Counsel who was doing it.
Mhm.
They calculate how many hours they work and how much their monthly salary is, and then they come down to say, okay, this comes to maybe $80 or $90 or $100 an hour.
Mhm.
If you calculate it that way, with respect to everybody who has worked on that bill,
Mhm.
you could easily find that the district council's bill probably cost $500,000 to make.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
you know, if you were to do it like now in government, we don't usually think like that. The people in the private sector, particularly lawyers and accountants who charge you per hour, they always think like that
Because
with
time is
them,
money.
everything.
Time is money.
Time
Maybe
is
we
money.
need to take that principled step in the civil service then. Maybe that's the stance, because time is money
Exactly.
and it's the people's
Exactly,
money.
because I would be interested, for example, if the Auditor General had a means to be able to determine that, to be able to say in respect of every bill, and to say how much money was used, and whether that was, what's the term they use, value for money? Okay. What value for money was given for all this money that was spent to prepare this bill, and it hasn't come into force? And when you look at the list of laws that have come into force, there are not too many, but because some of them you see are recent. But the ones that I'm looking at right now, which have taken like which were enacted maybe in the last 5 years, you've got the Design Rights Act, which was passed in 2019, hasn't come into force. A very bad one is Institute of Caymanian Heritage Act, which was passed in 1991.
Don't forget the
It is
pharmacy
still
bill.
listed. Well, Farmers Bill was, in fact, that's the one which is here. That's the one I was going to do next. You were Minister of Health, you know this. Pharmacy Act, 1991.
Woof.
Okay, then they enacted the new Pharmacy Act, 2024.
Mhm.
This hasn't come into force, but at least I would expect this one to repeal the other one. Then you've got Residential Tenancies Act. It was enacted in 2009. I doubt that will ever come into force.
But
And then
look how
you've got
much
the
people have been
Sanitary-
asking for that. Look at how much
You
people
see?
the people have been asking. So continue to read it. Continue.
Yeah. So Residential Tenancies Act, and then Stock Exchange Company Amendment Act. This is an amendment to an act which already exists, but this amendment hasn't come into force since 2020. And then there's a Sunday Trading Amendment Law, 2016. And then finally, this one is a big one, Whistleblower Protection Amendment Act, 2018. Okay. And that's the list. Think about how much money has gone into these. And the ones I have read is because they've taken a little long. There are some other ones which were passed in 2024, like Adoption Act, anti-sexual harassment was passed in 2025. Those are still within a reasonable time, because government has to look at how much money is going to be spent, money has to be allocated, and so on and so forth.
Sir, even
By the
looking
way,
at the Sunday Trades Act, we have heard it. It is something very simple, even because we're seeing right now how much businesses have been exempted and who can actually trade on Sundays. And the conversation has actually took place right here, that there is an appetite for businesses in excess of 3,000 square feet that they would open. But unless that piece of legislation changes, unless that one piece of legislation, just that section that says you can't operate grocery stores specific that are in excess of 3,000 square feet, can't. All that has to be removed.
Oh,
And guess
is
what?
that
There
the issue
is,
with that one?
yes, that there is an appetite for that. You have other people that can actually be deemed as non-essential services because there's a bunch of exemptions that has been actually created for persons to actually open their business on Sundays, like car repair stores, places that you can actually go and purchase stuff. But the section that is blocking grocery stores is the square footage. Once you're in excess of 3,000 square feet, you cannot open your doors on Sundays.
Once you are in excess of
Correct.
3,000 square feet,
3,001, you can't. No. And
Well,
there is an
now,
appetite. I'm telling you, there is an appetite from those business owners that they would actually open.
So, in other words, I mean, consultation, I imagine, did take place, but it seems that even if it was enacted, it can't be implemented. Why? Because the disagreement has continued.
Or they're not realizing how we're actually on the front doorstep. All you have to do is to make the step. I can assure you the discussions and the legislations that you have actually pointed out there and where they are right now will have some people really going to really see and look exactly, oh my God, well, we can get that done. Really. And this is why spaces like this is so important. You have highlighted all of these pieces of legislation. We have brought to the forefront. We're getting feedback from the public. We're seeing where people are in favor of. Then, hello, it's a no-brainer of what, if they're really listening to the people, what they should do. It's easy.
Yeah. And the other thing, if there's still some subsisting like disagreement, then the issue becomes, did you sufficiently consult before then?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, I know that just because you consult, government sometimes will tell you, look, we have consulted with everybody, but we can't accommodate everybody. We'll accommodate this and that idea, and then we'll make a compromise between this and that idea and come out with this third idea. Once that happens, I do understand government, you are elected because the people elected you, so you have to have the final say. So you can go ahead and say that. But at the end of the day, once you have made up your mind, then you should implement it. I do not think that the consultation should go on even fighting the coming into force of the law. I remember when I passed, 2004, I worked on I wrote the Employment Act. Okay. That time, Walling Whitaker was the director of employment relations. Joy Basdale was my good boss in the ministry who was giving the main instructions to that. You know, she wasn't my direct boss, but I considered her to be my boss because she was permanent secretary, and we worked very well to her. One lady I really, really admire, by the way, and we worked on the legislation, and it was passed. And I remember, again, safely, I'll be able to quote Mr. Roy Borden here. I ran into him in the car park, at our car park on Shedden Road. And then he said, Billy, so is the bill going for assent? I said, yeah, I just prepared it. It's going for assent. And then he said, yeah, you have to do that very quickly because there are still some people who are fighting it. Because there were still... So even when something is going for assent and it has been published, there are still some people who don't give up. And in a sense, those people succeeded because for a long time it didn't come into force. I think now maybe part of it is in force or something like that, because people just in Cayman, they seem to be able, even after a law is passed, to be able to influence the government, I suppose, because it's a small place.
Yeah, it's a small developing state, and many people are fearful of not getting elected. They're fearful of doing the right thing because maybe a smaller number has a louder voice, but then that gives validity to the silent majority. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? The smaller number with the loudest voice, but the silence of the majority of course, will give you the wrong results.
Yeah. Will give you the wrong results. And that's why it is very important for people to participate and participate in high numbers, because it is very easy. If you look at, for example, how powerful the Chamber of Commerce is. I remember one time, I won't name this minister because what he said was a kind of embarrassing, because he said one time, he said, well, there was an idea that they were discussing regarding what to do in relation to businesses. And then he said, well, when I was minister, I wanted to do this, but the Chamber of Commerce wouldn't allow it. So me and my Cayman friend in the office, we said, well, but why is he talking like that? Does he have to be allowed by the Chamber of Commerce?
Mm-hmm.
But it was a Freudian slip, because deep down, he knew as a practical matter that there are certain things you can't do in Cayman. If the chamber says
It will
you can't
cost
do
you a
it.
seat.
It will cost you your seat. So, but these are the realities. I mean, there are so many advantages to it being a small jurisdiction, in that you run into your minister in the car park, in the supermarket, and you can talk, and that's good. That's why it is particularly disappointing that this idea of district councils, which I think would work better in a small jurisdiction, we haven't taken full advantage to be able to make it work. In a larger jurisdiction, it can be a little bit of a problem, because if you've got a constituency like the constituency I'm in Canada, has got about 1 million people or something like that, because it's in Greater Toronto. You really can't work a system like that in such a way that the minister is close to the people.
Right.
But in Cayman, you can. In Cayman, you can. So it is really something that has to be looked at. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy, frankly, to have been associated with writing legislation in Cayman, because I as much as I think there's need for greater training of members of parliament and people who work in the sector and so forth, I really appreciated the fact that if I needed to clear up a point, I could easily reach the actual person I
Correct.
want.
Which is unique.
Sometimes
it's unique.
Which is unique, It is unique, because sometimes we go to Parliament, the minister just comes to me and then says, that thing that you wrote in there? Okay. What is the reason for that? And then we would explain it. And then he says, can we change it a little bit? Oh, we go to the committee room, have some tea there, and then we have it done. In larger governments, the minister will tell me, okay, I have to check with this one and that one and that one. And by the time he gives me his instruction, I even doubt whether he explained it properly to the person that he was consulting. I remember one minister when I was in the house. I won't call this one, although it was not a bad thing. I think I was amending the law relating to marriage, and this was before the same-sex marriage issue. Okay? So we went there and we were amending some other provisions there, and then he came to me and said, "You know what? I think you need to change the definition of marriage." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I want you to make it clear that marriage is between a man and a woman." Okay, that was not the reason why government brought that bill to Parliament. No. But he just thought about it, said, no. I want to take the minister said, I want to take this as an opportunity to say that. That's why when you go to the marriage law, to spell it out. Even before the civil union thing and so on, it said the marriage is between a man and a woman. So, and this was the minister just came to me and told me that, and then I went to the AG. I said, this the minister wants. We wrote it and we amended it, and that was it. So really, Cayman should take full advantage of the fact that it is very easy to consult. And I think the government in Cayman because it's small, and partly also is just because I find there is a certain attitude in government that people want to consult. I just don't know why that hasn't filtered through to the district council's thing. And by the way, Sabrina, a lot of this which I'm saying today is in my little course on the legislative process, but that's another issue. So
It's been a while. It's the first time for 2026, for the record.
it's a long while since I
long
mentioned
time.
that,
Long time you never say it. No mess with you, boy. But we're looking forward now. The path forward. Let's take a step as we look forward. We obviously see where the people are asking for district councils. We've established that there is a piece of legislation, even though some may say it's outdated, but there are certain elements in there that actually preempted exactly the structure that we have today. Would you say that the path forward is to just really listen to the people, maybe have a quick revisit of this, and even if there's some amendments, don't go gung-ho over it. But even if it is minor tweaks and amendments to modernize it 15 years after the fact, nothing that will hold it back, because based on this conversation and feedback we've received, people are realizing we got the foundation. Let's get it rolling. And you just need to sort out your funding for those remuneration of your boards, how they're going to be structured. But how would you see the path forward?
You see, I think that government should put together a little working group. They always put together, as you know, working groups for different pieces of legislation. They don't have working groups for all legislation, although they do consult. But sometimes they'll put together a working group, like I was part of many working groups, data protection, FOI, and different working groups, to be able to consult with the people, to say, okay, here's a working group. Can you give us some recommendations regarding what changes can be made to this law so that it can become acceptable, and give them an opportunity to consult. That working group will consult, of course, with the ministers, all of them, because they will be part of this, consult with some constituencies, consult with the political parties, and put together like a synthesis of what the views appear to be, and put these recommendations to cabinet and see whether a set of amendments can be drawn up to take them to the Legislative Assembly and then have this enacted. I think something like that needs to be done, rather than the way it is. We are just talking about it on radio and in the Parliament. And of course, just Mr. Honorable Brian, of course, has got his motion which has gone to the House. And I hope that it will something can arise there, that maybe they should put together a working group, to be able to work on it.
What would you say in regards to how the current legislation in its current form is worded in regards to political biases? Now we're hearing both sides. Why not? And then some people are saying, well, then you wouldn't have a balance. But that is why diversifying those persons selected is key as well. But what would be your take on, if it is actually going to take a minor amendment to modernize it, how it actually looks at political biases? What would be your take on that?
Political biases. I would say that they should try perhaps to make it clear that all political parties should be represented at the district level. In other words, you've got a district council in Northside, for example. You should be able to, the legislation should say that if there are political parties there should be representatives from each political party. So because at the end of the day, that representative is not a representative just for their party. It is it's for everybody in that constituency. So that will ensure that even if people have biases, but they will all be together as part of one team, and they try to see if they can give some coherent advice to the minister, which hopefully would not be unduly colored by party loyalty, but rather by what the people want. So that's one area I think that can be
Well, it
looked
would
at.
look it would
Because
look
what
like how the cabinet is right now as well. There's no majority ruling party that makes up the composition of cabinet.
Exactly. You know, you know, Barack Obama, when he put together his cabinet, he had to govern, of course, his center left, and he drew some inspiration from Lincoln, who had a cabinet. I think it was called a cabinet of rivals or something like that. You know? So, as much as what we said yesterday, which was that it is important to have a government where the core values are the same,
Correct.
because otherwise there'll be too much pulling back and forth. But still, you want within that, while you pursue that ideal, you don't want to exclude people who disagree with you. Okay. Now there are some people who just, you are so far apart on the key issues, like the Honorable Brian was saying yesterday, you are so far apart on immigration, on tourism, on financial services. Then you can say, look, we can't work together with you. We will listen to you, but you can't become part of the structure. Now, there's one little thing I just wanted to clear up, Sabrina,
Go
about
ahead.
this is, there is this confusion sometimes when they talk about the district council's bill. Some people say, well, it hasn't been brought into force, it hasn't been enacted, it hasn't been implemented, it hasn't been, like the right terminology, it hasn't been commenced. Legally, usually they would say the act comes into force or enters into force. Okay. Like it says in section 1.1, it says shall come into force. That's normally the term that most people will understand. Now, some lawyers will use the term commencement. Like, the commencement is really a legal term which they use, like you do a commencement order. The commencement order is the one that brings the law into force. But I was speaking to a lady who was a senior drafter in the Office of Parliamentary Counsel in the UK. We were at a conference in South Africa. I was chairing a session, and she was one of the two speakers in my session. And the talk she gave was that in the UK, sometimes they don't want to use the term commencement, although they still use it, because in their research, they found out that when you tell people commencement, they don't understand what commencement is. And then also, sometimes if you say it hasn't been implemented, that's not quite accurate. It is misleading, because there is legal implementation. Legal implementation means there is an order which has been passed to bring it into force. Then there's also factual implementation. There are sometimes you can bring a law into legal force, but it's not implemented on the ground, in that you haven't appointed the board of directors, you haven't established an office, you only start doing that after. Now, and so forth. So what I would encourage people is to rather use the term come into force, to say, okay, it hasn't come into force. Now, to say that it hasn't been enacted is also not correct, because it is enacted once the governor signs it and it's published in the Gazette. It's enacted. Okay, like the District Council bill Act was enacted in 2011.
Yeah, there I have it on the screen.
Now to
I have it on
bring
the
it into
screen.
force, yeah. Oh, you have it on the screen.
See, I got
So it's just a little bit of the terminology of it. I won't say it this time. This one also is in the course, but I wasn't going to say it. So yeah, but I mean, I just thought that I should explain that, because you know there can be some misunderstanding regarding that. So. But really, let us see where this goes. I just think that the wrong thing is to just let it continue knocking around the way it is. And I think it's really great that you were able to begin this discussion yesterday and continued it today, because clearly people are interested. It goes to the root of democracy. It's not just about district councils, and people really want to participate. You see, the way what I think that in government, for example, they should promote a lot. They should promote, and I think I saw somewhere, I think it was from what you were saying at the beginning of the show, the need for people who work in government to be able to control legislation, to control the policy. to be able to know how to work within that system. Because the danger that sometimes you have in a small jurisdiction, and I think we've talked about it a little bit earlier, is that because you've got these important, big interests in the private sector who are really part of the system, they should be consulted. They bring a lot of good to the country, but also there's a danger sometimes.
Hold on, I got somebody who wants to be added to the call. Okay, 1 second.
Sure.
Hold on. Let me get this. There we go. Want to make sure. Go ahead, sir, until that person is connected. Good evening, caller. You're live. Okay. Good evening. Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening. You're live.
Sabrina.
Yes, and Dr. Mr. Balika is also on the line.
Good evening, Mr. Balika. I always enjoy hearing when you call in.
Well, now I'm going to keep quiet because I also hear you calling. I want to listen now more than talk.
Well, I actually just had to your point about the laws, no commencement date, right? I just want to. I would love for you to either confirm or correct my understanding of this commencement, right? So, take for example the 2009 Cayman Islands residential tenancy law, right? Yes. It was enacted, but it's not enforced. What I understand that to mean, when a law is enacted, it has passed through Parliament, received assent from the governor, and is officially on the books. But many Cayman Islands laws have a clause that says they will come into force on a date appointed by cabinet, right? Sometimes called a commencement by order. So if no commencement order is ever issued, is it the law remains enacted but not enforced?
Exactly. It is part of the statute book. It has gone through all the legislative processes and all the elements, the components of the legislature who are the Legislative Assembly and the governor. They have enacted it. So it is a law. It is enacted. It is on the statute book. When the statute book is printed, it is included, but it has not been operationalized. It has not been brought into force.
So it's like it's sleeping, but it's real, but it's just not active.
It is sleeping. It has passed all the legislative steps. It is just there now. It is sleeping. It is like it is sleeping, but it is part of the statute book. It is part of the laws of the Cayman Islands.
So my understanding then is right that this happens sometimes when governments pass a law, but then they realize that there are some sort of hurdles, right? Whether they be administrative, political, or practical hurdles. Like, for instance, with this particular law, like setting up a tenancy tribunal, funding the enforcement, or just ironing out any problematic clauses. Am I correct in my understanding, sir?
Yes, those are some of the reasons why they might not bring it into force. It might be they don't have the money. They are not ready to recruit the people who might be necessary. But unfortunately, sometimes also government maybe has changed its mind, or somebody out there is still pushing that it shouldn't come into force. It can be any of those reasons. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Then I don't know if you I thought I should mention before you go that this is something that other countries have tried to avoid, by ensuring that government, for example, if it doesn't bring a law into force after 1 year, the law will automatically come into force after 1 year. Some countries have put into place certain things which are intended to ensure that it doesn't stay like that for a long time without the government being accountable for failing to bring it into force. Yes.
But then how would that be feasible? Because if the case is that it wasn't brought into force because of, not that it brought in force, if there's no commencement order because of things like, setting up tribunals and funding enforcement, etc. I mean, how would it, I'm just asking, how would it work if it's automatically brought into force? Yeah.
Okay. Very, very good question, because it allows me to say something which I was planning to say, but we didn't quite get round to it. Okay, the way. Okay, there is a provision in the law which says that once a law has been assented to by the governor, even if it has not been brought into force, the certain things can be done under the law if it is necessary for those things to be done before it is brought into force. So, for example, if, say, before a law comes into force, you want to appoint a council, even before the law comes into force, the cabinet can appoint a council and give them letters of appointment and say, okay, but your term will begin when the law comes into force.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes also, like they did recently with the Legal Services Bill, Legal Services Act, what they said was, okay, we have enacted it, it's been assented to, but before we bring it into force, we need to prepare the regulations. So they prepared the regulations, and I believe they also appointed the tribunals who are going to act under that law. And then once they had done that, then they brought it into force. Now, it depends on the nature of the legislation. Some legislation works better when you have the regulations in advance. Some others, you can do it after that. Like, for example, if you've got a law where you can start doing certain things now and do some others later after the regulations are done, you can bring it into force even before the regulations are in force. But if, say, the regulations are really vital
Mm-hmm.
to the operation of the law, then you want to prepare them before you bring it into force. So you can do it one of two ways.
Okay, interesting.
I don't know. I don't know if that was too convoluted.
No. I was able to follow.
You follow?
Yeah. Yes, please. Thank you very much for speaking to you,
I
sir.
learned
Thank
so
you.
much when Mr. Belika calls.
There we go. I think we all do.
You're so kind, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we how you had break down how laws are amended and the amount of time and all of those have cost implications. I don't think people realize the steps and the phases that you go through. And for someone who isn't or haven't been there, who are just looking, look, we need the law to say this, we need the law to say that, let's get it done now. It is this is not making excuses. But unintended consequences, I think somebody had actually mentioned there, if you don't get it right. But then how can you actually hasten things that is of priority to the people? Because you realize a year has already gone out of this administration come April already. Think about that, Mr. Belika.
Yeah. You know, because you see, legislation has got the technical side, the bureaucratic side of it, but there's also sometimes the political sensitivity of certain issues. For example, let me go back to, like, when you are giving what are called instructions, which are proposals for legislation to be done, they instruct the guidelines in the Cayman Islands, which follow the guidelines, generally speaking, in the Commonwealth. They say, well, if you want to pass a piece of legislation, what are the elements that should be contained in your proposals? Okay, you should say, what is the reason that you want this law? Why do you want it? Okay. What are the possible legal, constitutional, or human rights problems that could arise? And if they do arise, how do you deal with them? Does the matter have any issues of political sensitivity? Are there certain things, for example, which might be politically sensitive, maybe not to the whole government, but to the particular minister? Imagine, for example, if you are the minister in whose constituency the dump, for example, falls, okay? And the government wants to enter into some contract on how to deal with the dump. Of course, the minister in whose constituency it falls, it will be sensitive to them, because if the policy of the government ends up making the government unpopular, he or she could lose his seat. Why? Because they're going to say, well, look, you are in our constituency and you allowed them to do that, so that even me as a drafter, although I'm not a politician, but I'm trained as well to recognize political sensitivity.
You're able to
And the
put
policy
yourself in
officer-
that person's shoe. What if it was me? What if the shoe was on the other foot?
Exactly. And so you've got all these things that have to be done, and then if the law, for example, requires like sometimes there's an amendment which is required. Sometimes an officer would come to us and say, the minister wants you to delete this word in this law, and then you put this other word in, and then very often I would ask, okay, what is the reason? Oh, the reason is because this is what the minister agreed with the chamber. Or
Context matters.
Say, no.
Context.
Yeah, context, exactly. Because then I would say, okay, for me as a drafter, what I need to know, I want to know, the real question is, what is the policy reason behind it? Okay? What is the policy reason behind it? If the minister wants me to put it in, and I might even suggest maybe that to achieve the end he wants, this is not the best way to do it, because for me, it's far more important I understand what end you want to achieve, and then leave to me how to achieve that. Because sometimes people will tell you, delete this word and put this word in. And then when I say, okay, but why do you want it deleted? Then they say what they want to achieve. Then I tell them, well, if that's what you want to achieve, deleting this word is not going to achieve it. Let me discuss with you how we can achieve it. So that all these are the little tiny things that you have to work with people. Nuances in dealing with people. And a lot of people, sometimes even senior people in government, sometimes I did find some of them really needed to know how to be able to work in that kind of environment.
And not take things personal, because they may think, based on your line of questioning, that you're trying to block them, when if you are in your role to protect them, to bring them the outcomes legally, then it takes a matter of understanding. But they have to also be open to suggestions, another perspective, because I wouldn't think that me being the minister and you working as a legal drafter would not be in my best interest, carrying out my wishes in the best interest of the spirit and intent of what I'm trying to achieve in a piece of law. Now, that may sound like a word salad, but what I'm saying is I wouldn't expect for someone of your caliber, if you were there and I was writing a piece of law, that you would actually not do your best to try and give me what I'm asking for.
Exactly. You see, a lot of times when I started working in a working group, I would start off with a few things. I would tell them, you know what? When you give me your proposals, just remember that they are new to me. I do not understand why you want to make these proposals. My initial reading of the proposals, I'll get a certain basic understanding of what you want to do. But for me to be able to understand them enough to reduce them to a piece of legislation, usually there are a lot of questions I ask. So don't think that when I'm asking you these questions, it is because I'm opposing what you want to do. It is because, first of all, I want to understand what you want to achieve. Part of my training, for example, also is to see whether there is any easier way to achieve your end. What I usually call a less convulsive way of achieving those things. There are sometimes, for example, people who come to you, then sometimes also you might want a certain change. But once I research what you want to achieve, I'll tell you, no, actually, you don't need to amend the law, because there's already another law which deals with this.
Right.
Now, then sometimes, like, for example, they want to create a new offense. Then I say, well, but there is already an offense under the penal code where you can prosecute this particular offense. And then they say, well, but what is the penalty? Then I look at it, we say, okay, it's maximum 2 years imprisonment. Then they might say, well, we think that in our particular case, if somebody is stealing postal material, we want the offense to be higher than 2 years, and we want it to be 5 years. Okay. So then what I would do is I would not create a new offense. I would just say that whenever you are charged under the penal code for theft, if the thing stolen is postal material, then your maximum sentence is 5 years. So it's like we're achieving your end, but we are doing it differently because we don't need to create a new offense.
But you're
So
ending up with the
there are
results they
all
asked
these
for. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And sometimes like a new concept can arise, and then I tell them, okay, give me time to read the case law. Then I read the case law, and the case law sometimes is also not very clear. And then I'll say, I have to go to a law journal, a journal written by some professor somewhere, so that I can read the learning on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might find sometimes my draft in the end, when I prepare it, it might be 2 pages long, but it took me 2 weeks to work on it because of the background research. And one of the things that we also do, you see, there's an editorial side of the law. This is becoming less and less important now because of Grammarly and the proofreaders are not as important as they used to be. I just signed up for my Grammarly Pro, and man, what it can do! It's clarity.
You're working smarter,
effectiveness.
not harder now. With yeah. So you're embracing AI. Congratulations.
Well, I have to do my best, you know. And in the old times, the proofreaders were very important. We'll
Right.
never get rid of human beings totally.
No.
We're very important. Yeah, we'll never be able to do that. So it's like in an office, for example, you would have a drafter has to work with usually a paralegal to do the research. Okay, to do the research. And then you've got then the style editors. These are people who now, once it has been written, and you are finished with it, you give it to the style editor. By the way, Sabrina, in other countries, the bigger countries, the UK, New Zealand, and New Zealand is not that big, but the more advanced countries, drafters work in pairs. A drafter doesn't work on a law alone. They work with two, usually a senior and a junior. The senior will have their own laws which they are working on. The junior is working on their own laws. But even before they send it to the client ministry to review, they read each other's work and make double sure that before it goes out, at least another drafter has had a look. And the reason for that is because legislation is too important for one person to do. It can be very, very complicated. And then after that, then it goes to the style editors. After the style editors are done with it, the style editors are the ones who look at the little marginal note, the little tab here, the little thing, and they just make sure that it is all right. And then the other thing which the style editors do, I'm looking at the time, last point. The other thing, like in the Australia Federal Office, they've got hundreds of what are called drafting directions. Basically, those things tell you that they try to standardize the laws to ensure that if you are crafting an immunity provision, it must be like this, because they want it to be correct to be the same among all laws. Then they tell you if you are deleting a paragraph and inserting another one, this is the wording you use. If you are inserting a paragraph after deleting 4 paragraphs, this is the way you do it. And all those different situations, they are always worked out to ensure that the laws are standardized. So there's some very complicated side of this, and then there are those mundane but very, very important things which have to be done. But Sabrina, let me leave you there. Today, I didn't intend to speak so long, but
you were
once
appreciated.
we got going again, it was tomorrow I will listen more. If I call in, I'll call in for 5 minutes so that I can listen to other people as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk again soon.
Always a pleasure. Thanks. And I'm seeing where a conversation ensued in the chat about the Sunday trade. You know, we had an episode on Sunday trade, so it'll be interesting what we're coming up here. And it's good to see the feedback and the commentary coming from both sides. But thank you, Mr. Belika. Always a pleasure to have you on. Now, tonight, we have pretty much unpacked a law that was passed but never actually activated, as you've stayed with us. And thank you for staying with me. We've also covered in our headlines about the beach replenishing itself, from the Advisory District Council Act and the Democratic promise that it still holds today. Yes, but one thing is clear, ladies and gentlemen. Cayman is at a crossroads. Yes, between what we've inherited and what we've chose to build next. So I leave you with this evening. What's your question to these? Do we want a government that listens or one that appoints? Do we trust nature to restore, or do we engineer our way forward? And when promises are made, who holds the pen to make sure they're kept? It has been my pleasure bringing you another episode of Sabrina Speaks. I'm seeing the commentary, and you guys are getting me back on this one. And that topic is going to be interesting. But thank you for lending me your ears. Thank you for commenting. Jimbo, I see you. Love you. Thank you for joining us, even though you were late to class. All the love and well wishes to you, my love. And thank you all for your voice and your participation. Until next time, please stay sharp, please stay grounded, and stay in the conversation. You're more powerful than you think. Until tomorrow, as I normally say, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, even my haters, love you lots, take care, be safe, and God bless. That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.